me brace myself now. Okay. So Abi Abdullah alayhi salam said, فقال يا يونس, O Yunus, لو أخبرت الناس بما فيها لمن زار الحسين. He said, O Yunus, if I was to inform the people, okay, from those who visit Hussein, لقام الذكور الرجال على الخشب. He said that the penises of men would have inflated upon the wood.
You know what, Sayyid Muhammad, but since they're obsessed with penises, I think it's important that I give them something in return. It's only fair I'd give you a gift in return. Since this show, the series is dedicated to Deobandi, and I believe Bro Hajji is a Hanafi himself, okay? Let's have a look at what their condition is of the Imam of Salah. So Al-Hanafi al-Askafi, he mentions that the one who deserves more to lead the prayer. So what he does is he lists several things that are required. So for example, let's just say we have two individuals who are very equal in terms of knowledge and recitation. Let's have a look at what their condition is. So he mentions, okay, so he mentions it is measured by the level of his avoiding the obvious obscene acts and keeping away from that which is obligatory or compulsory. Fine, no problem. The one who has better tajweed, no issues. Okay, fine. If he should be older in his submission to Islam, so it might be that a young man leads an old man who is newly converted to Islam. No problem, fine. He continues, and then he mentions something very interesting, and he says,
Sayyid, before let me read it in Arabic first, please. ثم الأحسن زوجة ثم الأكثر مالا ثم الأكثر جاها ثم الأنظف ثوبا ثم الأكبر رأسا والأصغر عضوا. Yes, Sayyid.
So he says, so he says, and then the one who wakes up earlier, then the most decent, meaning as in the one from who has a better heritage or bloodline. In Al-Burhan, it adds, then they're best in their voice, okay? Then he mentions certain characteristics, okay? So these are the final things in order to what would fulfill two individual people to being more worthy enough to lead the Salah. And then he says, the one whose wife is more beautiful, and the one who has more money, then the one who has more possession, then the one whose clothes are cleaner, then the one whose head is larger and his penis is smaller.
Subhanallah.
Subhanallah.
So basically, in other words, when you have two people and they very much match each other in virtue and rank, it all ultimately boils down to one thing, and that is whoever has the smaller penis out of the two of them, he would be the one who's most worthy to lead the Salah.
What the hell is going on?
They have justification as to why, the person is required to have the smaller penis. But we'll go into that in a second. So you can see this is mentioned in the famous book, Hanafi book, Dar al-Muqtar, page number 76. And I'm sure the sheikhs are aware of this, especially if they're Hanafi. God knows whether or not they implement these particular rulings. Only Allah knows best.
I hope they don't.
So, again, another notable Hanafi jurist, he mentioned why, and he says, then the one whose wife is more beautiful for his better chastity, then the one whose head is larger and his penis, his member, is smaller. Then the one who has more wealth and the one who has more possession. I think the reason why they have the issue with large penis is because if he's leading the Salah, he could potentially be wearing a certain item of clothing, or he just may be naturally gifted, that it could potentially distract the people behind him. Maybe this is the reason why they have an issue with a person having a big penis.
But why would you even be looking at something like that to begin with? I mean, if you're praying, then you shouldn't be. Generally, you shouldn't be. But even if you're specifically praying, why would you even be thinking about that?
Yeah, because they have some traditions that mention actually that you can rest your forehead on the person's back. So you can imagine if you're in a congregation with
Okay.
full of people and you've got the Imam of Salah leading and he's practically bending over, right? He could have a big penis, and the last thing you want to do is place your head on the backside of an individual who. So yeah, I ain't gonna. Yeah, so you can understand why. So, well, this is interesting because let's be realistic. Certain people who belong to certain ethnic groups generally, they say it's scientifically proven, whether or not it is or not, but they tend to be large in certain areas, right? So, in other words, if you belong to certain ethnic groups, you would never be able to even lead salah for them because, well, especially if you're in a Hanafi congregation, because it will be problematic, right?
Right.
So anyway, here's another scholar, a Hanafi scholar, Tahtawi, I believe it is. He says, then the one whose head is larger, i.e. the size which is not so huge, otherwise it could create disgust. And his statement, then the one who has a smaller member. Some of the scholars have interpreted it as penis. Because the great size of it shows, in most cases, low morality and moves freely.
Wallah al-Adim, I'm basically lost for words.
Maybe
how can that be the person? Like if someone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them something, they have no choice over it. So how can that? Basically, they're saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the person low morality as a result of that. The genital that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them, that will lead to them having low morality.
Have you noticed though, like the whole concept about salah for them, and it's kind of like a joke, if you understand what I mean. We kind of mentioned in previous shows how they believe, if a person, they would rather think about an ox and a donkey.
What the hell is going on?
Than to think about the Holy Prophet upon him. You can look at a vagina with lust by recite the Quran, your salah becomes void. A person should have a small penis and not a big one, because if you have a big one, it could potentially interrupt and distract your prayers. Let's not waste any more time on this. The reality is, I think we can do a whole show about the conditions of Imam and Salah, because according to them, they're so extreme. I think they have a tradition in Bukhari, which even mentions that even a hermaphrodite for them can lead Salah. So, the penis can go to such a small measurement that practically a person with no penis can even lead Salah for them. But let's forget this now. I think we've proven our point with this particular narration, how he understood it, how he's misquoted it, how he's misunderstood his own book, so perhaps he's not aware of them. But yeah, I think the chapter is pretty much closed on that. There's nothing really much to say. Somebody's got an issue, an objection, they're more than welcome to bring it up.
Wallah al-Adim, I'm basically lost for words.